Then all of a sudden there were these series of parties called the channel parties.
At around the time of the first channel parties, I believe 2005, 2006, there was a need for something in Sydney. Like, we'd had a big end of the 90s. We'd had the Earth Dream and the Oms Not Bombs, and since that there was a bit of a come down, not much happening early 2000s as far as big parties fused with rebellion and freedom and protester. And then suddenly the channel party thing sort of came sort of out of nowhere.
So basically someone would nominate a place, there'd be one or two meetings in a pub, but it was extremely decentralised. There weren't these kind of weekly meetings for 6 weeks with, have you got this sorted, have you got this sorted, how are we going to do this? It wasn't that. There were one or two meetings in a pub, people decided on the venue, you said, okay, you're going to get into the venue first, we'll make sure that this is happening after. And that was about as much kind of real background organisation as there was. And every sound system basically turned up and did their own little thing.
I think the basic principle for the channel party is to have 5, 6, I think even one channel party had 12 different stages, all different genres, from bands right through techno, drum and bass. Everyone who's bringing something to one of these stages is accessing all these different communities, so once the word gets out, we can easily have like 1,000 to 2,000 people rocking up at this party within an hour or two.
Channel parties are interesting because they really attract a large cross-section of people. And because it's built on this idea of having different people coming with different sound systems and coming from different communities, so the crowds that would come along would represent that. Just anyone and everyone.
Yeah, madly inclusive. If you've got a sound system and some people to carry it, then you can be involved. Or even little things like coming along with a hula hoop or some lights or a bubble machine or something, The door's open to as many people to get on board and be involved.
It was coined channel because above what would be our first kind of venue, the ABC TV studio, was the great big antenna at Artarmon, the TV broadcast antenna, and Pete did a flyer with that antenna on it. It was just like we just coined it Channel Zero. That was the birth of the channel name. There was at least 7 or 8 systems across that building. It was a maze as well. Like, there was every style you could possibly imagine. There's people outside in the courtyards of these buildings, like having campfires and shit like that in the middle of this industrial complex. But man, it was electric in there. I remember the MC saying, he's like, Sydney, finally we've got a proper party. And I was like, yeah, we fucking have got a proper party here.
Suddenly, free parties had more than just a couple of hundred people. There we had 1,000 people, and part of the reason was social media, and had exploded, and everyone was getting on Facebook, and the party was mentioned on Facebook, and suddenly there'd be all these people rocking up. The cavalry had arrived.
That first hour or so where people are arriving, it was just that buzz. People had just come in just pogoing. They're so happy to be there and just like going, channel party. It's such an event. It's like New Year's Eve or something.
For me, the whole channel party thing is people responding to a society in which everything is controlled, and controlled in such a way that really kind of takes away people's autonomy, people's capacity to actually properly express themselves. So it's people just going, fuck you, we're just going to do it on our own. We don't have to kind of adhere to all these rules. We get to decide how we enact our own culture.
We give you lots of power, we give you lots of freedom.
Free Party movement is really the only temporary autonomous zone that you'll ever find. The whole idea of it being a temporary autonomous zone, there was really no organiser, there was no security. Everybody was an organiser, everybody was a security.
I think it's quite empowering for people to police themselves and to be at an event where they're seeing that this community is policing themselves.
You just need to totally outnumber the dickheads with like awesome people. It's hard to be an asshole when everybody is like smiling at you and like doing these ones.
People just feel so good that they're part of this underground sort of culture which is a bit different to mainstream. It's not driven by money, you know, it's driven by having a really good party.
Just to put on something that's free in this day and age is like really radical. Share it with the people, you know, like sweet free love in the form of mad bass. It's a real like gift that you're giving, and you know how it is with gifts. You give and then you get back threefold. Yeah, you're giving the love and you're getting the love.
If you look at what's going on in the clubs in Sydney and the world across, I mean, I've started doing free parties because clubs are basically just not providing what you want. You know, you're there in an environment in which you're totally controlled, be it by security or the police. You can't do whatever you want to do, which you should be able to do as a human being.
You're trespassing. You're not going to shut it down.
In those early days, we didn't really get shut down quite so much. We were doing things that the cops had never seen in Sydney, so they'd turn up and they wouldn't know what to do. We'd go out and talk to them. In fact, we'd go out and give them a good old story about why we were there and kind of plead with them to let us continue. They'd seemed to pay attention to initially, you know, they were all right about it. They were almost friendly at the very beginning of it, which was all right. They got their shit together and started to kind of attack us methodically. You know, they'd come in and try and shut down generators or take DJs away because they thought that would stop the party kind of thing. But we'd always have a tricky CD or something hidden somewhere we'd press play on, and, you know, they'd take the DJ but the music was still going, so the party was still going, and we'd just battle with them.
How many are there?
The Coward Street party, the cops turned up and we shut the gates on them because they wouldn't talk to us, and we locked them out, and then literally hundreds of riot police turned up and we had to battle with them. The atmosphere was unbelievable, I've got to say. Like, we'd shut the cops and the punters that hadn't got there out, and the punters still managed to get in. Like, they were climbing over the buildings next door and jumping in other people's fences. They got ladders from somewhere. Like, they were just getting in, you know, and the party was going strong.
The whole idea of the critical mass arriving at, you know, any said venue in a short space of time, that was exactly the vibe. We are the people and nothing's going to stop this party. The first one that got shut down was so hard for them to shut down, and it just unified everybody. It only united the people. It made us stronger. It politicised us even more.
Eventually, they'd shut down all the generators and all the actual sound systems had gone, but there was a live band stage going on in the corner, and the whole crowd had just moved into the corner, and they were protecting this band. There's like a drummer and a guy on a trumpet or something like that, and they're playing acoustically, and the cops couldn't figure out like how to shut it down because it was just a band. And you could see like they were looking around for how it was being powered. It's like, guys, it's instruments. What are you doing?
Everyone just surrounded the stage, and there were, you know, people on the stage and around the stage, and then a ring of police around them just thinking, what are we supposed to do? There's just this huge crowd just standing on this stage chanting, peaceful party, and it was just an amazing vibe. I remember standing on the stage at one point just with my fists in the air just thinking, wow, we are winning this party even though we're getting shut down. It really had its momentum though, you know, from channel party to channel party. We would always wonder, you know, how long will this one go for, or how many police are going to turn up this time, and each time it's like the riot squad just got bigger and bigger and bigger. The Parramatta Road one, just really compact, and it was so close to the city.
A couple of thousand people at least turned up to that, and it was just heaving in there, just going off, this amazing atmosphere.
The power was coming right out of a power box right next to the stage, and it was actually just hidden by a framed photo of Kramer from Seinfeld, and he just has that look on his face, that Kramer look, just the irony of all the power being hidden by Kramer. And I do remember a discussion being had right next to the framed picture with the police and an organiser on turning the power off, and the organisers saying, well, look, we don't really know where the power is, actually. There's Kramer the whole time just looking on, just with that cheeky look on his face like...
Do you want to go to court and risk thousands of dollars of fines for the sake of a good night? You've had a good night.
Why?
Quit.
Why are you shouting?
Let's go, because everyone has been making noise all night, and the only way that some of you people seem to hear is if I am loud, okay?
Do you have sand in your vagina?
Fellas, only you. Okay? Now, come on, give us a go. You blokes are in charge of your gear, pack it up.
Mate, it's all in the head of rock and roll, we'll turn it all off.
Good, if it was Slim Dusty, I'd still have to lock you up. Okay, let's go.
Everyone in there knew that this is definitely getting shut down, and but that was also part of the excitement, was how the hell are they going to shut this down anyway? And they did in spectacular style.
The riot squad, the police helicopter and the dog squad were all called into Sydney's inner west last night, not to manage a violent protest, but to close down an illegal dance party.
Police had a battle on their hands, and after 2 hours struggling with revellers, the party was eventually shut down. And so was one of Sydney's busiest highways. About 1,000 people spilled out onto Parramatta Road after being kicked out of an abandoned warehouse at Camperdown in the early hours of this morning.
The riot cops, they had a helicopter, they had the dogs, they had all the local constabulary, I don't know who else was there. Parramatta Road is a pretty hardcore road to be shutting down. It was a bit of an overreaction, you know, it was just a party. I guess we knew it was going to get shut down, but we didn't know it was going to get shut down in quite so hardcore a way.
No arrests were made in relation to the dance party. Police are still trying to track down the organisers.
One of the beautiful things about these parties is that there was no organiser. But when the police would come and try and shut it down, they'd want to know who was responsible, who made this happen, who can we get in trouble.
Mate, you obviously have got something to do with this, haven't you?
One of the cute, fun parts of the resistance is that there was this organiser. There was a guy called Dave Bentley who didn't exist. So they'd be like, who's the organiser of this party? And people would say, Dave Bentley. And they're like, who's Dave Bentley? And they're like, I don't know, he's just a guy. Here's his phone number. And on the phone number, you call up and there was a voicemail message saying, hi, you've reached Dave Bentley, I'm not here right now. And he was just this giant red herring. And I'm sure the cops probably spent all sorts of resources trying to find Dave Bentley. But the guy didn't exist.
Violence in the streets, police brutality's not what we want when we're living in a free society. Just a place where we can have a free party is all we want when we're living in a free society.
We're at a channel party, there's about 7 sound systems. There hasn't been a channel party for 4 years. Everyone's just doing it because they love it and putting their heart into it, just have a rocking party. The cops are here apparently, we're not sure what's going to happen, but the vibe is so good.
The only reason I can think they have for shutting it down is just that they're obsessed with control.
That's the role of the police, is to control everyone. And so as soon as you've got a few thousand people getting together and doing something that's outside of the realms of that control, I think that's a scary thing. I mean, that's how revolutions start, you know? Not to say that this is some kind of giant revolution, but it's a small revolution. It's people realising that we actually do have power together as a group, and we can do things, and we don't have to just bow down to the control that is enforced upon us every day in this world.
This is something that's happening, something that's chipping away at the edge of this giant open prison that we live in a way, you know, where only certain things are prescribed. and here's something trying to push through, and there's a response, and it's the police, you know, trying to shut it down because that's what they do, and you know that this is not legal, and it's like an insurrection, an uprising, you know, a revolution.